Have you ever noticed that there's this weird tension that exists between adults and teenagers? Okay, yeah, of course you've noticed that, right? It's kind of like aliens from two different planets. And it's not that one planet is better than the other, they're just different. Like the old people planet understands things that teenager planet doesn't. Things like taxes, okay? Go ahead, admit it. Adults understand how taxes work better than you. Sure, taxes are boring, possibly the most boring thing to ever exist, but they're also an important thing to understand, especially if you're an adult. Insurance, applying for health insurance, home insurance, car insurance, or life insurance, that stuff is no joke. Adults have a better handle on it. I bet most of you don't even know what kind of insurance you currently have. Grocery shopping, unless you're one of the rare high school students who actually enjoys shopping for groceries, which if you are, I'm not throwing any shade at you at all, that's totally cool, okay? But unless you're one of those people, you'll happily admit that it's something you probably know less about than your mom, stepmom, or dad. Politics, where to hire a plumber, what to do about strep throat, the list goes on and on. Things adults get that teenagers may not. Now, on the other hand, there are things the teenager planet gets that old people planet doesn't. Things like social media. There are exceptions. Your mom may be a social media wizard, great for her if she is, but for the most part, adults have no clue about social media trends like you do. Music. Your mom may listen to the same music as you, but let's face it, she doesn't know what any of the lyrics mean and you kind of don't want her to, right? Your dad may know more about you than like old rock bands, but he doesn't know anything about hip hop. He doesn't, right? Technology. Most of you can text faster than your parents can speak. Pop culture. Ask some of your teachers to comment on current celebrity gossip. Chances are they're gonna give you a blank stare. Because you're in high school 8 hours a day, and most adults haven't been to school for over 20 years, you know stuff about things like chemistry and geometry that they have long since forgotten, or never learned in the first place, or never care to know about, okay? In fact, I want two people to tell me right now something teenagers understand that most adults don't. I'm on screen, so I'm not gonna be able to hear you, okay? So you're just gonna have to think about it. But here's the point. Adults and teenagers are different in obvious ways and not so obvious ways. For the past couple weeks, we've been talking about what it means to be underrated. As much as some of you are taking on some roles and responsibilities that are usually taken on by adults in certain areas of your life, the obvious truth is this. Being younger means you're different than the adults in your life. And you get that. Anytime two groups of people are different, tensions can rise. For adults and teenagers, that tension leads to a lot of negative opinions. And neither group does a great job at believing the best about each other sometimes. And when you don't believe the best in someone else, you tend to push them away and create distance between you and them. Most of the time, teenagers are the ones pushing adults away from them and tuning them out. But why is that? What makes us want to not listen to adults? What makes us want to lean away from them? Well, for starters, maybe it's because you have so many adults speaking into your life already. Parents, teachers, coaches, bosses, small group leaders, youth pastors, the list goes on and on. Me, up here on this video screen right now. And after a while, it can all start to sound like background noise. So why not just tune it out? Also, it is difficult to listen to people when you feel like they don't understand what you're dealing with. You probably don't have a ton in common with the adults in your life. And if you don't feel like someone gets you, it's hard to feel like their advice is relevant, isn't it? Just know something, okay? Adults do care about you. And unlike how you feel sometimes, they're not trying to abuse their authority. So what if they could actually serve a purpose in your life? And what if maybe you're missing that purpose because you're too busy getting frustrated, tuning them out, or discounting what they say? Like, listen, just try. Like, what if they could bring something to the table that could actually be helpful to your life? So Paul, who we've been talking about a lot in this series, is the most legendary missionary in the history of Christianity. Like we've said before, he spent a lot of time investing in a younger guy named Timothy, who was kind of like his protege. They traveled and worked together until eventually Timothy was on his own, leading his own people and investing in his own proteges. Just like Timothy had looked up to Paul, there was now a group of people looking up to Timothy and observing his every move. So that's a lot of pressure there. So Paul wrote Timothy a letter. Many people view Paul's letter with the tone of a father instructing a son. And so for the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at the part of the letter where Paul said this: "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young," which is a really cool way to start that verse. "But set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." In the very next chapter, Paul continues with more, fatherly advice. He says this, never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. Treat older women as you would your mother, and treat younger women with all purity as you would your own sisters. I love how these two passages go hand in hand. Paul's basically saying, respect the people around you. The older crowd needs to be treated with respect, and guess what? So does the younger crowd. But as a teenager, isn't it usually your natural inclination to see younger and older people as like nuisances? Like you don't like your little sister bothering you and you don't like your dad telling you what to do. When you're the oldest person in the room, the younger ones are annoying. When you're the youngest one in the room, the older ones are out of touch. Okay, I get that. That's totally normal. But Paul is saying the way we treat others, younger or older, it matters. Being older doesn't give anyone an excuse to treat younger people like they're stupid. Being younger doesn't give anyone a pass to roll their eyes and act like what older people have to say doesn't matter. People above us and people under us deserve our respect because everyone brings something to the table. And see, Timothy could have ignored this speech. After all, it's a speech, most people hear at some point in their lives. Or Timothy could have heard this and thought Paul was an out-of-touch old guy and dismissed him. Instead, Timothy took what Paul said and he acted on it. He treated Paul as someone wiser that he could learn from. Because Timothy was humble and willing to listen to Paul, Paul trusted him. Timothy had earned Paul's respect and eventually the respect of the entire community of Christians around him. And it all began with his willingness to listen to someone older than him. There was an exchange of honor and respect that allowed both of them, as an older person and as a younger person, to learn from one another. And see, the same can be true for us. I want you to take a minute. Think about how you respond to the older people in your life. Are you treating them with respect? Do you listen to them? Are you learning from them and their life experiences? See, you may hear that and think, you don't know the older people around me, dude. Like they're not exactly the Apostle Paul. Like what could I possibly learn from them? The older people in your life, sure, they may have made some bad choices. Some of them may actually still be making bad choices in some areas now, but they still have something to offer. You don't have to agree with everything someone says to learn from them. You don't have to agree with their choices. In fact, you can sometimes learn from their mistakes. Even if the adults around you have made some big mistakes in their lives, they've still gained wisdom in the process that you can learn from. See, wisdom is knowing what it takes to make better decisions. Okay, knowing what it takes to make better decisions. It's being able to figure out what needs to be done. It's having the ability to focus on the smart stuff, not the foolish stuff. And sometimes we get wise from our own experiences. And sometimes we're spared the lesson personally and are able to grow wiser from the experiences of others, especially people who have lived more life than we have. Good or bad, the experience of adults, it gives them a leg up. Why? Because they've seen way more outcomes than you and I have. They may not be smarter than you when it comes to video games and what's going on in pop culture, the latest trends, but in a lot of ways, their experiences make them wiser than you. So you shouldn't just push adults away because they're different from you. Timothy didn't. You should see adults as people who are different, but as a valuable resource you can learn from. And when it comes to the situations you face in life right now, more often than not, older people are going to be able to see the bigger picture more easily. Like they've been there. They've been around for a long time. They have a perspective that younger people don't. It allows them to see the things that matter more clearly. And when we humble ourselves enough to hear it, they have a lot to offer. In other words, what I'm saying is this: give ownership to someone older. Give ownership to someone older. Like Timothy, you need people in your life that you can follow. And I'm not talking about people who think they're perfect, act like you're weak, motivate you to make bad choices, or impose their beliefs on you. I'm talking about people who are truly wise because they've experienced more of life than you, and they want what's best for you. See, they will guide you on a path with more joy and less regret. They will teach you how to live more like Jesus. They will empower you to be more influential to the people around you, including people who are younger than you. It is your choice. Will you give ownership to someone older? The number one thing you have to decide when it comes to the older people in your life is this: will you listen? Will you listen? Will you allow their bigger perspective to shape your limited one? Will you allow them to speak into your current decisions? Will you move past the initial discomfort and involve them in your life? Like, I get it. It's difficult to take a risk and allow other people to have ownership in your life. You might resist the idea because you think, it's annoying when other people tell me how to live my life. Like, isn't part of growing up just, learning things on my own, having my own experiences? Or you're thinking, man, I'm trying to become more independent, not more dependent. Or you may be thinking, admitting I need help, like, isn't that a sign of weakness? Asking for advice, isn't that a sign that I can't figure things out on my own? Or maybe you've always just looked out for yourself. Maybe you don't know any smart people you could ask for advice. Look, thinking about letting other people speak into your life may make you feel like frightened, annoyed, or childish, or dependent, or whatever, but that doesn't make it any less important. And it doesn't mean you should avoid it. Putting gas in your car isn't always convenient, but that doesn't take away from its importance. Without gas in your car, you can't get where you want to go. And without wise older people in your life, you can be smart, you can be inspired, educated, creative, hopeful, you can even be a strong and resilient person, but you will miss something. You'll miss the perspective you can't get on your own from people your age. You'll miss having a model to look toward. You'll miss the motivation to move to a better life. You'll miss the guidance that will help you better influence and lead others. And in the end, I think you'll risk missing a big chunk of what God wants for you. You're young. That's awesome. It's incredible. The world may see you as underrated. They may think that you don't bring much to the table, but don't let that slow you down. Your age doesn't determine your faith. Your age doesn't determine your actions. Your potential is greater than what other people think. But as you navigate life, you need other people. You need other people. And in particular, you need to give ownership to someone older.